Hi guys, welcome back to Dialog Studios, yet another Android development tutorial. We'll be taking a step backward to one of my tutorial on Android Recyclerview displaying grid layout, which actually populates content, i.e., album thumbnail, album name. This is actually hard-coded into the app. This is the video right on YouTube. I've gotten a lot of comments to actually make this load dynamically. Probably have a detail page on click of each grid item, so we're actually going to improve on this particular application, whereby we're going to move content to the cloud, in which we'll be calling it via Json, and we'll be using retrofit, Picasso and Glide to load album thumbnails and also create a detail page for each grid. I actually created a JSON which is actually sitting in a domain called boombox.ng/albums/music JSON. You can actually create these probably using a web programming language, PHP, ASP.NET, but the endpoint is to have a JSON which you can use to call from the client, which is the Android application. If you should notice, we have the key values and they are all sitting in the album array, and the first key is the name, whereby the name is Maroon 5, number of songs 10 songs. The thumbnail is pointing to the link where the album picture actually sits. I want to copy this and let you see how the thumbnail is actually going to be displayed. So you have this picture as a thumbnail right sitting in the cloud in this particular link, and we'll actually be using the source code which we've been known to. This is actually sitting in the GitHub, my GitHub account, called Android Cardview. This is the source code of this particular video tutorial. So this is what we're actually going to be doing, and we'll be improving on it, and we are going to add more functionalities which I mentioned earlier into this particular application. So sit back, relax, get your hand digging. We're actually going to integrate API calls, and we are going to create detail page on this application. So let's get started. I'm going to move straight to Android Studio, where I have the source which I actually downloaded from the GitHub account, and I'll be showing you on the steps involved to actually get a dynamic content creation, which is actually calling from the APIs. And also we're going to have a data page whereby we're going to still have some of those data passed to another activity. So I'm actually going to go to the build Gradle, which is the first, whereby I'm actually going to include some dependencies. We need dependencies like, we actually have Recyclerview, Cardview and Glide right there, but I'm actually going to include dependencies like Picasso and retrofit. We need retrofit, so let's include retrofit. We're going to use retrofit 2, so I'm going to compile com.squareup.retrofit 2 retrofit 2.1.0. That's fine. We're actually going to be including the converter JSON of retrofit, so we'll still run the compile. Now com.squareup.retrofit 2 converter JSON 2.1.0, and I'll be including Picasso because we're actually going to be using Picasso and Glide. com.squareup.picasso Picasso 2.4.0. That's fine. So I'm actually going to sync Gradle. At this point, we now have our project synced. I'll be going to the layout to create a detail page. You know, we actually have the activity main that handles the launcher, and we have the card, the album card, and the content main, which is the Recyclerview. So I'm actually going to add another layout called the detail, which will take care of the item click, you know, to another activity. So I'm going to create a layout resource file called activity detail. Click OK. Move to text view. I'm actually going to make this a relative layout, and that's fine. And we're actually going to integrate in some views. First of all, I'll need an image view, so just watch me. Image view. You can as well code along. If you have the source, just download the source from the GitHub link I showed earlier and continue with the integration. Match parent, and let's specify 310 as the DP, as the height. And I'm going to call Android, give an ID. Let's give it thumbnail. Or image header. Right, and I'm going to give Android fits system Windows true. Android scale type, it's going to fit X and Y. That's fine. We're going to have a text view. Text view, layout width and height, match parent or content. Now we're going to give an ID. Call that name of songs. Android layout margin left. Let's give that 10 dp. Android text. Need a text. Let's give a name of song or name of album. Say our album. And we're going to call Android text alignment center. Android layout margin top 10 dp. We're going to give a text style. Text style bold, and we're going to give a text size. Text size, let's give it 25 sp, and we're going to make the layout below Android layout below. It should actually sit below as art ID. It sits below the thumbnail image header. That's fine, so it should come down. That's for that. Now we're going to have another text view. Let me just bring this slightly down. That's fine. Now let's have another text view. This time is actually going to we need to match parent for the width, and the height should be wrap content. That's cool. We give an ID, Android ID, number of songs in the album, and we give a layout margin left as 10 dp, and the text number of songs, and we're going to align it, text alignment center, and Android layout margin top 10 dp, Android text style, that's what we did. Let's make that bold. Text size 25 SP, and just sit below the name. So sit below the name. Name of album, or we've actually missed one step, but no problem, we get to add it over here. That's going to be for the name, you know, just add it quite quick. Match parent, wrap content, no problem with that. Let's add an ID. I'll call that name. Let's create that over there, and we're going to give a layout margin left. Whereby we're going to give 10 dp, and we're going to give margin top just 3 dp, and we're going to give a text size 20 SP, and we're going to give a layout below, so it's actually going to stay below the name of songs. Can you get that? So that's what will be populated from the API. You know, can you see it's not showing any we're not setting any text to it, so we're actually going to get that done from the API. So we're going to have the last text view, which is actually match parent, wrap content. Let's assign an ID. Number of songs data, just assign that. Android layout margin left 10 dp, that's margin to the left, that's what that means. Another one to the top, is assigned 3 dp, and we have text size, (20 sp), and below layout, below the number of songs ID. That's cool. So we've actually created the detail page, which will be called on the click of each grid item. So let's go straight down to Java classes. We actually have the album, we have the albums adapter, and the main activity. If we should look at the main activity, we populate the album drawable via an array, which we're actually going to take away because we have a JSON that will get that done for us. So we will be doing something here. So we're actually going to be creating sub packages for the API and also for the model. So you right click on this package, just right click, go to new package, give API, okay, create another one, new package, you call that model, okay. So right inside the API we're going to have this client class, which is a Java class called client. Let's create that right inside that, and create the services Java class, service. Let's create that as well. So in the model you're going to have two things, the album and the album response. So instead of us creating another album, this album is actually the encapsulation which actually gets and sets each is the get and set method of each fields, the name, the number of songs, the thumbnail, which are the key value pairs. If you should notice, let's go back to the JSON. We have the key of name, number of songs, and thumbnail. So these are just the field name, number of songs, and thumbnail. So instead of you creating a new one, you just refactor, and this is just how to do a straight refactor. You click and drag to the package you want, just drop it there, and you click on refactor. It's actually going to get that refactored for you. So it's now bears the package of model. Can you see this? Model is added, so that's fine. That's for the model. And we're going to create one more Java class here called albums response. This is actually needed because we're going to make reference to the array, which is actually the album. Can you see it? We have an album array, so we need to make reference to this as well. That's why we needed the response. So that's fine. We'll be integrating details into the client and service in HTV. So let's get started with the client. We have a class called client, and this is actually going to handle the base URL. So let's give a feeder public, static, definer, got string, we call that base URL, which will be equals to, is actually going to be this link, this base, copy that. It can be different in any of your server that you feel like using, and if you are using this same example, so you just have to pick it that way, go back and you paste that right inside there. So you have something of this nature. You take away the backslash, the last slash, and you have this boombox.ng. That's fine. So we're going to have another field, public, static, retrofit, calling retrofit2, give an object, retrofit equals to null at this point. Now we're going to have a method, public, static, retrofit, get client, So right inside this method, we'll test if retrofit, let's say, is equals to null. Now retrofit is by instantiating new retrofit. Now you'll be calling the builder on this. That's cool. Now you point to the base URL. You pass in the value. You need to add converter factory. This is when you call the Json converter factory, and you call the create method on this. So you need to build. That's fine. You have the set. Now you need to return retrofit. Cool and simple. So that's for the client. Now let's go to the service. This service is actually going to be the endpoint. You know, it's an interface. So it's actually not a class. Sorry for that. So we need to change this to an interface. Interface are called the parent. So now we're going to use the at annotation get, because we are getting stuff. So what we getting? The endpoint. Now I need to go back to the link again. Now the endpoint is albums Json, music Json. So you copy that, come back, and you give, so that's going to be a string. You paste that in there, albums Json. Now you need to call a generic class, which will be the album response. This is when you need the album response, and you call the get albums method. We're going to create the get album method right inside the album response class. Pretty simple. So from here, we'll look at the album response, which is right in the model. Let's go there. Now we need to call the album. We first of all use the serialized name, which is what? Album. And we use the at expose from the Json annotation. Now create a private feed list, passing album, and create an object from that called albums. That's fine. Close that. Now we're going to have two methods. The first one will be the public list album, passing album. Now we need to get all albums. Get albums. It's a method. We'll return albums. That's fine. Close it right there. So we're going to have another method to set the album. This is just the album setting get. I'll show you where we actually get that serialized name from. Now we need to set albums. Now we pass the list generic, pass the albums. So we use these albums equals to albums. That's fine. Now this particular serialized name album is gotten from the Json. Can you see this album, which is the array? That's why it's an array. If you should notice, it's in a list, you know. So that's how that is being gotten. So we'll be looking at the album itself, because now we are using retrofit. We're not just creating an ordinary encapsulation. We need to attach the serialized names, which is predominant to retrofit calls. So instead of us just declaring private strings just this way, we need to use the retrofit call. So I'm going to take away these to actually first serialize name. So we need to call the keys. The first key will be name, which we needed, and we get to expose it using the Json. Now we create the field private string name, just this way. The second one, just let's copy this, or even let's copy all. We just make amends. Now this time to be number of songs. I will show you where we've gotten all these values from, and now it should be number of songs just this way. And we have one more we need for the thumbnail. This will be thumbnail, and we need thumbnail. So I'll show you where we get this serialized name from. Back to the JSON. Now, if you should notice, we have the key name, another key for name of songs, number of songs, and for thumbnail. If you need to get the year of release, depends. Sometimes you can have a long list of key values in a particular array. You know, you can just, that's how to just get the keys. You need the keys, and you create a field from there. You know, so that's how we get a field. So we have the empty constructor album. Now this particular constructor, this is a string. Change this to string. No more integer. Don't deal with integer. String. That's fine. So just make changes to the methods. String, still maintain the structure, and this should be string. This also should be string, and this should be string, because it's still the same keys you're calling, just that you are making modification to the data type of each method. So that's it for the album. We've taken care of the album response, and we'll be looking at the album's adapter, the main activity, and we'll be creating a detail activity. You know, so let me just create that method. It's sitting out of the sub package, it's sitting in the main package, a Java class, or what we call detail activity. We need now that class. So we're heading straight to the main activity, which is the launcher. Let's get to see what we need to modify, what we need to keep, and what we need to take out. That's cool. So right there in the main activity, we have the Recyclerview field, we have the albums adapter, we have the albums list, and now we're going to have one private field. Private, we'll be calling the album, you know, which is right sitting in the model, because we're going to need it, and its object album. Let's call that. And we're actually going to be calling a progress dialog. We need a progress dialog. We can't just be loading content from the server with just boring. You know, there should be a progress. Okay, there's a load happening. So that's a good user experience. That's cool. Now in the onCreate method, we have the set content view to activity mail. We have the toolbar. And now the Recyclerview will be taken out, even with the prepare albums and co. I'm going to introduce one view over here. I want it to sit before the collapsing toolbar anyway. I'm going to call it init views. This is a method that will be doing the artwork. Init views. We still maintain the init collapsing toolbar which was created, which actually has the collapsing toolbar at the top of this particular application. We're going to be taking away these prepare albums, so I'm just going to delete it off. This particular one, I'm deleting it off. We don't need it, so you should also delete it. And I'm going to take it away from the onCreate method because there is no call to that. We don't need it. And we'll maintain the grid spacing item decoration, and also we're going to maintain the calculation, the math round. We're going to maintain that. So underneath this, I'll be bringing in the init view method. So it's a private field underneath here. I'm going to call the private void init views. It's a method. Now I'm going to do something here. So just to have better space, collapse all this because we are not even touching them, and even the collapsing toolbar, we're not touching them, we don't make a reference to them, so I need to collapse them. So we're going to focus on the onCreate and also the init views. So I'll first of all start with creating the progress dialog, which is PD equals instantiate the dialog progress dialog as this class. Now PD, we're going to set message. It's a string. Let's say fetching albums. That's fine. And PD, we need to set cancelable to false. You shouldn't have the ability to cancel it. That's the essence, because it's after the dialog that another call will actually take place. So we show that, and now we're going to call the try and cache of the backdrop. This over here, let's cut it out. We're taking it out from the onCreate, so that it's actually going to run probably at the background. Paste that here. This is actually loading the backdrop, which is like the cover, you know, of the image that's before the grid. No, that's just this. This is static. Just let's maintain that static. We're going to make amends to the album's cover. You know, that's the major focus. You know, so this is just like a cover for the backdrop. That's cool. Afterwards, I'm going to bring the recycler views. They are not supposed to sit on the onCreate. Let them come over here, take them out. Let's cut this, so we have less space to deal with in the onCreate. So we're moving that out to another method to undo. So we come over here. I think this is the end. No, this is the end. Okay, that should be the end. You paste that right there. Still have it right into it, but now it's in the init views method. Now after this, we're going to call another method called load Json. Load Json. We'll be creating these. It's not populated automatically, so now I'm going to collapse this to give me breathing space to work with. I think it's still maintained the same. Let me keep it so that you can still have focus on it. So now I'm going to create a private field, private void load Json. as a method. So this is actually going to get the network calls. The first is the try. Need a try. There will be a corresponding catch anyway, but right inside the try, we instantiate the client. Give a client equals to new client. And we also make reference to the service and service class. API service, that's the object given. Now equals to the client get client. If you notice, we have that method get client. Let me quickly show you. So I want you to really understand what this is doing. Can you see this method get client? That's it. Back to the main activity. Now we're going to create the service class. That's fine. Just this way. So now let's make a call, a retrofit call, retrofit 2. So the album response, which is actually populating the album array. I hope you remember. An object called call equals to API service get albums. That's fine. Still make call. You now call the object. No. We're going to make reference to in queue. That's queue up by instantiating the new callback, which is the album response. So this populates the on response and the on failure. If you notice, you get the on response and the on failure created. You know, once you call the callback, you're going to have that done. So right there inside the on response call, we're going to pass in the list album. We have the items which we actually created. I think we've created a field of such over there, or we're going to maintain items, no problem. You can use that. So we're going to actually make this to the response of the body and get albums. Now we call the Recyclerview. You know, this is what you call the Recyclerview to set adapter, instantiate new albums adapter. We have that which is housed in the Recyclerview. You get application context and you pass the items. That's that. Now you still call the Recyclerview to do a smooth scroll to position. That's 0. And at this point, you hide the dialog. That's cool. So that's on response. Now on failure, if there's a network failure, you call the log D, and now you populate the error. Now get message, still you toast. That's from the Android widget. How about you make text and you call the main activity, which of this class. Now you populate the error as error fetching data. That's fine, that's enough. And you get the toast, whereby you call the length short, and you got to show the toast. That's fine. Afterwards, you still hide the dialog. You're right on course, but you need to, then in a try, you need a corresponding catch statement. So you need to catch for the exception. It's Java lang. Now, if you don't know the kind of error that can come up, let the log, or let the system take that. So now we paste the error, which is still will get the message, and populate that gracefully toast, make text this class, convert to string, now call the toast, the length short, and you show that. Pretty simple, short. Can you notice this? The short, this handles any API calls. This is just how to consume it. We'll make reference to the two things we need: the album response and even the client, which actually houses the base URL, and the endpoint, which is from the service. These have made reference to this, and it actually passes the calls down to the Recyclerview to handle. That's just it, passing this items parameter. That's it from the list album. So we have that set, and that is good to go. Afterwards, we're going to look at we should look at the albums adapter. This is where we get to integrate the item on click listener of each album menu. That's each album grid. So we're going to make some changes here, and I want you to follow along on how we're going to achieve this. So we have the view order over here. I'm going to take this down. We may not need it at this point here, because I'm still going to make reference to it anyway, but I believe it should be somewhere at the bottom, somewhere towards the end of the code. This is for the, okay, let's say somewhere here, so we're still going to make reference to that anyway. So let's look at how the code flows. The albums adapter, that's fine, and we have even the view order, which come in. We have the albums adapter, that's okay, and we have the onCreate view order. Alright, that's fine. That actually calls the albums adapter. Now we have the unbind view order. The unbind view order. Now right there, I'm actually going to make slight amendments here. It's still the same, but I want it to flow this way. Albums, we're going to call the albums adapter. Just on the my view order, and we're going to have the onCreate view order. That's fine. Well, we have the view group. I'll be changing this parent to view group, and the integer, instead of view type, just maintain I. That's fine. Now we have an object of view. Just let me have this short view, whereby it calls the layout inflator from Instead of the parent, it will be the view group. Or by it get context. That's cool. Now it inflates the layout album card. We have that created right there in the code. Now this parent should be the view group. And we'll maintain false. Now the my view order we call the view object instead of item view. That's cool. We have that set. Now let's get to look on the bind view order. How about we gonna call the key values, this time the values itself, to the appropriate order to actually display this on the recycler view, which is actually going to be on the card layout. Now we have on bind view order, we're going to maintain instead of this final, I'm going to make changes here. The parameters, the first is going to be albums adapter over there. What about we're going to make reference to my view order, and we're going to have the order parameter as I instead of position, just I. That's fine. Albums, my view order, which we'll call on view order, and the I. That's cool. So now instead of doing this, just let me take this down. Let's create ours. Now we're going to call the view order, which calls on title. Just this. Now we're going to set the text. Call the album list get pass I. Now we get the name method on this. That's for the name. Sorry for that. Now we're going to do the same thing for count. What about we use view order? Let's call the view order count. Set the text. Still call the album list. We get pass I as parameter, and we get the number of songs. That's cool. That's for the count, which is for year. Now we're going to use Picasso to make the network call for the image. So we're going to load album cover using Picasso. So now I call on Picasso from square up with the M context, load album list get I. Now call on get thumbnails. That's from the get and set. Now we only need the get. Now we want to create a placeholder so that this will show before the real album displays. So I have a drawable called load, is a GIF. This will actually showed up. This is going to be like the default image before the drawable loads into the image view. Now into, instead of image view, is going to be view order dot thumbnail. That's cool. So now we're going to do without all this, since we've created ours and we are very sure that it's gonna work perfectly. So instead of set on click listener, okay, we need to set on click listener to the overflow, so that the overflow will just show up. let's still maintain the overflow. That's for the overflow. Let's take away this. So instead of order, it's going to be let's see, view order. So this order should be view order, this one. Let's take away this. Now this should be a final, should be declared final somewhere here. So we're still going to maintain the final. That's fine. So that's gone. So we have that set. So that's cool. So we can easily move down to the my view order. The pop-up menu still maintains. We're not changing this. Even we are not touching the menu. Item click listener, that's for the three buttons, which the three dots, which is actually the overflow. We're not handling that. Now we're going to look at the my view order. This is where we're going to attach the intent to put extra, which is actually passing this to the detail activity. So just let's get dig in here. Now right there we have the field set, the text view, thumbnail, overflow. They're all fine. I'm going to add the item click here. We'll call this on item click. So if you've been trying to figure out how to create an item click on any Recyclerview layout, you actually do that on the view order you create, because you need to get the content. The content are the ones you need to pass along. So I'm going to call item view to set on click listener, and we instantiate with a new view on click listener. About we're going to have an override. You're going to have an on click method public void on click. Click method column view, create an object of v. This time now we're going to get the integer for the position. Let's get adapter position. Now if the position is not equals to Recyclerview no position, there we go. Now you first of all have the album click data item equals to the album list, get position, now we need to use the intent here. How about we call on the intent equals to new intent instantiating. How about we have the m context and the detail activity dot class that will be pointing to. That's fine. We need to start to put extras. Which will be the first key name, call the album list, get position that it is, and we call the get name. I see how the flow goes. Now we still need to put extra to the same. Just copy this, paste that. This time it will be number of songs. You must be accurate with this key, with these values. It's a key anyway, but you must be accurate with it. Now we're calling the get thumbnail, not get name. Get thumbnail. Here we go for the third one. No, this should be get number of songs. I'm sorry for that. Number of songs. And this should be for thumbnail. And it should be get thumbnail. After that, we call the intent and we add flags. Add flags, but we need to call the intent again to flag activity cleared up or activity new text. Let's go for the new text. Now we need to call the mContext to start the activity, and we pass the intent as the parameter. That's cool. So right there, we're going to make a toast. Let's make a toast. Make text. Get context. Now we're going to say you click. Concatenate that with the click data item, which is actually going to get name. That's the data item you click. That's what that means. From the name it implies. Now you toast the length short. You need to show these. Cool. You have it set. So this is just how to create the put extras. You know, anytime you click this particular name, you need to the name you click. You can also it may also be to the picture, you know, but once you click because it's a grid, you have the picture, you have the name. A click on the name takes you to another activity, which is actually going to be detail activity, and from there we're going to populate some other stuff like the picture, call the name, call the number of songs in the album, you know, pass the data. You know, this is just a flow, you know, passing data from one activity to the other. No, that's just it. This is just how to achieve this, and I will be stopping this part at this point. And the second part, we're going to talk about the detail activity, which will be quite short, and we're going to test this out in an emulator to actually see how the application looks. It's going to be the revamped Recycler grid layout. So thank you very much for hanging out with me throughout this session. If you don't understand anything whatsoever, please leave a comment in the comment section of this particular video. I'll be there to help you out with it. Never go anywhere. Stay by for the second part. Take care.